Let's go, folks. Time for the Gibby Show.
How you doing, baseball fans? Welcome to the second episode of the Gibby Show, the weekly podcast covering everything about the game you love, baseball, and the Toronto Blue Jays. We are here with one of baseball's newest social media stars that just keeps growing each and every week, each and every day. I mean, I can't believe the growth that this gentleman has seen. He's the former two-time manager of the Toronto Blue Jays. He's a baseball lifer. He's an upcoming author of his book, Gibby, Tales from a Baseball Lifer. That's coming out direct from San Antonio, Texas. My friend, Mr. John Gibbons. John, how you doing today?
Johnny, good, man. You know what? It's our second show, like you said.
It is.
And I can't believe how excited I was the last few days, ready to do another one. I sit out there, I was managing. I was in the dugout a lot, and people, when you come out, people could boo you, right? They haven't been able to boo me from where I'm sitting right now, so that ain't a bad thing.
That's true. No, that's not a bad thing. And what's a good thing is that this podcast just kind of took by storm baseball podcast. We have not left the number one position of baseball podcast in Canada. We're the number one sports podcast in Canada. You're the number 10 podcast in Canada of any genre. We're in the top, one of the top baseball podcasts in America. You were number one in Great Britain. I mean, all over the world, people are getting Gibbyized.
Oh, God. Is that many people, is that many bored people out there, man? Everybody loves a little entertainment. Experience. Everybody loves baseball. That's what it is, And you know what? A lot of people love the Blue Jays.
Oh, that is quite true. This is going to be great. Last episode, we had Josh Donaldson. What an interview that was. This week, it's like hard to top Josh Donaldson, but this week's guest is somebody you pulled it out of your hat, you called up, made a few calls. Alek Manoah will be joining us today, the ace of the Blue Jays.
Yeah, it's you know what, I have never met the kid. I've heard nothing but great things about him, but he's a natural, and he's a perfect guy for us. They're getting close to the playoffs, but the huge part about it, the perfect timing. The Blue Jays just went into a big important 4-game series down in Tampa, a tough place to play. And they dropped the first two decisively. And so he's got the third game, and he twirled a gem, right? Shut him down. That's what he's a stopper. People when they hear stopper, they think the reliever, right, at the end of the game. No, they're starting pitchers when they can stop. It wasn't like they were on a bad streak, but important games they can stop a losing streak, a small losing streak. And they win the games you need to, or they give you a chance to. So perfect time for him to come on here. You know what? And
without a doubt.
He's
and the
big
Puma,
leader,
right?
Sure.
The Big Puma, is that the nickname?
That's what he's called. He told me that's what he's called. I mean, he come up with a lot of good names for him. Haas, Boss. You name it.
Yeah,
anyway.
It's gonna be an incredible week. Blue Jays. This is what you call. I guess you would call this entire week nut cutting time. Would that be correct?
Yes. Oh yeah. It's coming down to the wire. There's not many games left, and now that we have the extra wild card spot, it's been tremendous for baseball. Now they're basically vying for positioning in for home field advantage and things like that. The Yankees been playing pretty good lately. It'd be awful difficult to catch them down. But that doesn't matter. The bottom line is to get in, and Toronto's sitting pretty right now.
Yeah, it is. But the Jays really, they have to really get into that lead position for the wild card, so that ensures home field advantage right now by winning the season series against the Jays. Tampa Bay has that lead if there's a tiebreaker situation. So the House of Horrors is there, still looming, but although that seems to have been shaken up a little bit with the 2 victories in Tampa Bay this past weekend, it's going to be a wild week for the Jays. It's going to be a wild week for everybody in contention. It's going to be an amazing thing. But off the top, I mean, there's something that happened that that you want to weigh in on. I mean, and we're talking about our guest that's going to be coming and joining us. The manager of the Blue Jays, John Schneider, announced that if home field advantage in the wild card is on the line in Game 62, the Blue Jays would use Alec, even though he'd be unavailable in the first round. And I know you wanted to comment on this.
No, I figured he was probably joking, wasn't he, when he did that interview? I don't know. No, I have no idea what goes on behind the scenes or what they're thinking or anything like that. But as an ex-manager there, and a fan of the game, I wouldn't understand that move. The only way I can understand it is if you needed to win that game to get in, right? Get in the playoffs period. Or if your pitching staff is just overflowing with, like if it was the old Baltimore Orioles that had 4 20-game winners or something, it didn't matter who you pitched. But that's not the case for the Blue Jays. It's not the case for any team really out there now. In my opinion, to skip your ace, for that game that, to me, that doesn't make much sense. I would feel good rolling Manoah and Gosman out against anybody, anytime, anywhere, and then the way, Stripling's been pitching, they still, if it goes 3 games, who knows, eventually they got to have that extra guy anyway, but there's as good as anybody out there, in my opinion, from what I've seen. So, and I could understand it, but that's one of those things that better work,
Yeah.
But also from selfish, it doesn't, you want your best guys pitching. I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult to win in the playoffs. It's difficult to win. Period. You want your top guys out there, man. You know what? And roll the dice wherever it is, and hope that you're better than them. And even from a selfish standpoint, this is a chance for millions of people to watch this kid on the big stage when it matters, and he would become even more of a fan favorite. So, and that's from a selfish personal standpoint. So I don't think it'll happen, but if it does, hey, that's their decision, not mine.
Hey, the Jays just got to keep winning. Of course, the Yankee series in Boston at home against Boston for 3 games, and then finishing up the regular season in Baltimore. Baltimore was in the hunt, and they're still not totally out of it. But it may be a series that the Blue Jays can wrap it up and secure that home field advantage for the wild card series. It's going to be an exciting week, regardless. It's going to be a very exciting week for baseball, and there's so many teams in the hunt. It's going to be fun to watch. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's what was it? How many years ago was it? Remember, it was like the final game of the season. There was like 3 games that mattered. It was the Red Sox were playing Baltimore, and they got. Remember they got a rain delay and that got knocked out. They got knocked out, yeah.
And I think the Braves were playing somebody and they got beat in the final game. And then there was one other team. Maybe it had to do with the Cardinals or something. I don't know, but there was like 3 games went down to the wire. That's the beauty of the expanded playoffs. And so bottom line, let's just sit back and enjoy it. Yeah, I mean, so big week in baseball, and now you have started this Gabbing with Gibby. Opportunity to bring on some of the biggest names in the game, and our next segment is going to show you that Gibby delivers. Gibby delivers, and he's going to bring on the one and only. Everybody calls him the ace of the Blue Jays, Alek Manoah. And welcome to another Gabbing with Gibby segment. It is our pleasure to bring on one of the premier pitchers in the game, currently the guy many call the ace of the Toronto Blue Jays, a 2022 All-Star, 24 years of age, someone who's also become a clubhouse leader for the Blue Jays this year, Alek Manoah. Alek, welcome to the Gibby Show and the Gabbing with Gibby segment. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Hey, Alek, you know what? Hey, I'm still, I spent a lot of years up there. I'm still a fan of the Blue Jays. I always will be. It's a big part of my life. And I've heard nothing but wonderful things about you. you're one of the you're one of those. You're one of the guys, sports figures that not only baseball, sports needs. Period. Right. You're uh, you're a personality. I think so much is lost in the game now, where everything's just so blah bland and whatever. You got some personality, and you know what? You've got that. You have everything it takes. I'm not probably. You've heard this over and over. I guarantee, to be one of the great ones, and you're off to a great start because you have that fire, that intensity, and you know what? But you also got a big old heart of gold, man. Where you care about others and you lift your teammates up, and I know a big part of that's from your upbringing, right? I understand, your mother and has been a big part of your life, and tell us a little bit about, I want to know too, how the heck did somebody from South Florida end up in West Virginia, for crying out loud?
Yeah, it was kind of like a perfect blessing for me, I would say. I grew up in a household where very blue collar. We had to work for everything that we got, and sometimes no matter how hard you worked, you still didn't get it. So my mom, my pops, they raised me to be humble and hardworking, and to always understand that just because you're working hard, that doesn't mean anything. You got to keep going, and you got to keep chasing things that you want, and you got to take care of the people around you, and you got to treat people well, and my mom and dad always tell me you never know who's watching, so just always try and do the right thing. And West Virginia was like a huge blessing to me, and I was kind of a little underrated. I was a big guy in high school. I was like 6'6", 245. I hit 450, was a first baseman, closing out games, throwing 90, 92, and it was like, man, how's nobody, jumping on board? And the University of Cincinnati was the first team that saw me in a high school tournament. And they offered me like a 50% scholarship or something like that. And I always had a bigger picture in my mind. I always, since I was a kid, I dreamt of, being in the big leagues. And, as a kid, you're like, man, I want to face A-Rod and Pujols and all this stuff. And that dream was kind of just, I wasn't going to let it go away, and in my mind, I was like, if it's Cincinnati or whatever it is, whoever wants to give me an opportunity, I'm going to go make it happen. That summer going into my senior year, West Virginia was one of the schools that was very genuine in everything that they did towards me, and phone calls, and they would go to tournaments, and, my team would be playing in a consolation game, and all the other schools are watching the championship game, but West Virginia was watching me in a consolation game, and they're the only school in the crowd, and just very, very taking their time and just really showing me how important I was to them. And, I honestly took my visit, to Auburn, took a visit to Mississippi State, and took a visit to West Virginia. And, I had to wait till my senior year because I didn't have the funds to go on an unofficial visit. I was like, guys, I got to wait until you can pay for this, to go on an official visit, So a lot of schools kind of thought I was kind of just tailing them around and stuff like that. So a lot of schools kind of just fell off. And some schools didn't want to hold scholarships that long either, so kind of just, they were like, we're not going to wait for this guy. But ended up taking a visit, Mississippi State, Auburn. And I honestly, when I set up all three visits, I thought it was between those two big schools, SEC, some powerhouses. There's a lot of tradition, especially Mississippi State. Some big time schools, and I've always wanted to pitch in that bright light, so I took my visit at Auburn. I met Charles Barkley,
Hey.
and it was kind of cool, they rolled out the red carpet. Mississippi State, same thing, great steakhouses, things like that. But when I went to West Virginia, it was more of a family environment. The coach had a barbecue at his house, with other coaches and their families, wives, kids, other teammates. Really felt like I was at home, and for me, that was the biggest thing. I always believed in my ability. I believed in my talent. I believe in the work that I put in, and I believe in God's path for me, so I felt like that was God kind of letting me know, like, hey, don't get fooled by the bright lights and Charles Barkley and the nice steaks. Like, you're the kind of guy that's coming from, blue collar and family and all that stuff. Like, this is the place for you, you know? And the more I prayed about it and thought about it, I was like, people are going to think I'm crazy, but I'm doing it. I'm going to go to West Virginia. And, you know, on my visit there, the people you meet, the people you talk to, just very, very, very blue collar, very genuine, very down to earth. And that was what I wanted to be surrounded by, if I was going to leave home. So, that was definitely.
Hey, good for you, man. You know what? I'm an outsider, right? But I've seen enough of you perform. You're a blue collar guy all the way. You know, there's, you know what, and you know what? You're gonna get the most out of your career because of that. You're genuine. You know what? And that's what people love about you. That's what teammates love about you. And you know what? You're a guy that you fight for things. You know, you're gonna defend your own. You're gonna do all that. All the good things make great qualities that make up an individual. You know, so. Well, that's cool, man. You know what? And that, you know what? Hey, good for West Virginia bringing in. It's good for the Blue Jays, smart enough to draft you. And shame on them other teams that didn't pick you higher. You know, but you know what? That's the way it goes. Mike Trout didn't get picked till number 24 either. But I guess what were you, number 11, 10 or 11? Yeah. That ain't bad either, man. You know, that ain't bad. I said the other day, I said, I want to be your agent, man. I don't know. You got an agent already? You got an agent?
I got to keep going. He's been by my side since those high school days when nobody was believing in me. So I got a lot of love there.
Hey, well, I got some connections. They're not all good, but I got some connections. You know what? Anyway. Oh, gosh.
I tell you, Alec, I mean, you've really become a clubhouse leader. And when you're talking about what's happened in your career, this year has been incredible for you. I mean, also, there was a stat that I got yesterday that you are the youngest and the pitcher that is fastest had 300 Ks in your career in Blue Jays history. It's never happened before. So your trajectory is just been a skyrocket. It's been what an incredible year for you.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I saw that stat the other day too. I forgot who had showed it to me, but man, just to think about all the aces and all the horses on through this organization. I mean, from Doc to Steve to Juan Guzman to, you know, Cito to Clemens. I mean, you know, the names just down the list. It's crazy, you know. So for me to be the fastest to 300 in the organization is pretty crazy to me.
Great accomplishment. I do want to ask one question. This year, you made the All-Star team, 24 years of age. And you had such a great game. But the question that I had for you was like, here you are, you're with three of your teammates, you're in the All-Star game, you know, you're facing the elite of the National League, yet you're mic'd up.
Yeah.
They mic'd you up, and I was like, I couldn't believe it that you're actually in the game facing these elite players, talking to the Fox commentators. Tell us about that experience. That had to be really interesting for you, talking to a national TV audience while you're pitching in the All-Star game.
Yeah,
is it that easy? Really? Is it that easy?
It was crazy. I mean, it might have looked easy, but the decision in the beginning was a little I was a little weary of it because, you know, like you're going into the All-Star game. Obviously, you're facing the best of the best on the other side. But then again, there's a lot of nerves running as well. You know, I've never pitched in an atmosphere like that. And, you know, especially on that stage, millions of people watching, stuff like that. So, yeah, they kind of told me, you know, let's mic you up. And I was like, man, should I do this? And then in my head, I was like, you know what? I go out there and I grind every game and I'm pitching my heart out. And I said, this is the only game of the year. It doesn't matter if I give up 10 runs. There's no ERA. This doesn't, whether we win the game or not, like, you know, like this doesn't help us win a World Series anymore, you know, or anything like that. So I was like, you know what, let's just have some fun with it. So I kind of think it kind of kept me kind of loose and really just allowed me to have fun out there. And I think that kind of helped me pitch good too.
As a fan and a viewer, it was great. I mean, it really endeared me to you because it was like, what a cool guy to do this with all this pressure, and you had fun doing it. So that was my takeaway from it.
Yeah. Hey, when you say though you were nice and loose, that's not you at all, man. When you're out there pitching, you know, okay, you got a chance to relax, but you're the you know, you're sitting there watching. You know, Alec, you know what? A big part of success in the major leagues this is what the great ones, naturally you got to have great talent, right? Nobody's getting by with, lack of talent, right? You got to have that, but it's the intensity, the motivation, all those things, and you got to compete, man. And you know what? And you're on the pitching mound, you got to intimidate. I'm sorry. You know what? Naturally, you're an intimidating guy with your size, but there's more to it than that. I've seen, and I've been sitting on the bench before, and I watch guys, and I'm thinking, they get hit around and all that, and they never throw balls inside, or they, it looks like they're cowering out there, what have you. And that's not knocking those guys, but I've seen the great ones you watch. They're intimidating. I watch, Roger Clemens and some of those guys over the years. And that doesn't mean it's a show. That's who you are. But you're a big guy. You're coming down, and that goes a long way. And I was talking to these guys earlier. You had the game against the Yankees, right? And it was second and third judges up, right? And you end up drilling them. Okay, I get it. I'm not even going to ask you, intent things are like that, because I know what happens because you pitch inside and all that, right? But you're a kind of pitcher that you could have pitched back in the old days. You could have pitched back in my day, and you can pitch nowadays, because you're intense. You understand the game, and you just compete. But when I was playing, what happened? You get second, third, you got the best hitter in the league, or that particular year, or whatever, one of the top hitters on their team. And we'd be out there, and sometimes you're looking over and you're wondering, hey, is my manager sleeping over there? We got first base open. Are we going to walk this dude? Or, he's over there, I don't know, eating sunflower seeds or something. So the pitcher, it's not like the catcher. I was the catcher, got to the mound and say, hey, we got to, let's do this on our own. No. So anyway, the pitchers all the time, it was kind of coming on. They drill that guy. They save themselves 3 pitches. He'd go to first base, and they achieve their, while the managers were sleeping over in the dugout, they'd achieve their goal. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened, but I'm saying my point is, damn it, you could have pitched anytime, and that's part of the game. A lot of that's respect and all that, and I get all that. And then the best part about it is I know you guys are playing the Yankees right now too, aren't you?
Yeah.
I'm not stirring anything up, but then Cole came out and all that, and I get all that. That's part of the competition. That's what happens when you get 2 great teams competing for a championship. Tensions fly. The Yankees have been top dogs for forever in this business, and you know what? But you're the leader out there, and you're standing up. You didn't cower, is my point. In regardless, so as a guy that used to be a manager and it was in the game for 40 years, I appreciate that, and I'm telling you, there's a lot to that. That's a lot. Yeah. That's a big part of success. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I love pitching, man. I love competing. I have a passion for it since I was 3 years old, and my dad put a ball in my hand, and I was practicing with my older brother, his team, that they were 5, and then it got to the point where hey, you know what, you're just as good as some of these 5-year-olds. And next thing you know, I'm playing with 5-year-olds at 3 years old, and I'm 5 years old playing with 7 and 8-year-olds. And I remember my brother, he used to throw super hard when he was young, one of the hardest throwers in the league, but he couldn't throw a strike. And we would have kids that didn't want to catch him, because he would throw balls in the dirt and they're getting all beat up. And I remember, my dad looked at me and he said, hey, I know you've never caught before, but you want to catch your brother? Then I said, yeah, I'm not scared of this guy. It's my brother. I'll catch him. So they threw some catcher's gear on me, and I remember first pitch, I didn't even get my glove up. It just hit me right in the chest. Boom. Knocked me on my butt. And all the other kids would cry when that happened to him. I just picked the ball up. I threw it back at him. My dad looked at me. He's like, are you all right? And I said, yeah, I didn't see it. Let me get another one. and I just had a passion, a competitiveness that it's like I wanted to get this done, and every time I was a kid, there'd be a rain out, and every time there was a rain out, I'm yelling at my mom and dad, why is the game canceled? We could play, the field's not that wet, and you're crying, and you're 7, 8 years old playing in a it's not even a playoff game or anything like that, and that's just the passion that I grew up in loving the game, and me and my brother, we've always had a competitiveness to want to be good at this game, to want to be just as good as one another. We've had a competitiveness in everything, in school and riding bikes and races. I mean, I have a scar on my forehead because when we were 4 and 6 years old, we were running in the house racing. My brother was this is how competitive we are. My brother's trying to beat me and I'm winning. And he goes to try and grab me by the shirt and pull me back, but instead he pushes me. And I come, like, I lose balance and I hit the corner of a wall and I crack my head in. Like, that's just the competitiveness like we've always had as kids, and
hey, is your brother as big as you?
He's not quite as big. He's about 6'2", 225. He's a big guy, but he's not quite as big. And that's definitely one of the competitions that we had growing up. We would always get home from school and write a little measurement on the wall to see, who was growing, who was growing more than the other. And it got to a point where he just stopped growing. And
when I was 3 and 5, you're talking about competing at the big. I was playing with mud pies, mud cakes, man, or GI Joes, and I had a sister. Man, it might have been Barbies too. No wonder I wasn't any good at this game. You know what? There's something special. There's something to the success of these guys. But definitely
a little different.
Yeah.
But I had a question for both of you guys, actually. I mean, obviously, Alec, I'm sure you and your brother, you watched each other's back and, everyone was always protecting each other. But here in the game recently, with the social media being the way it is and Twitter, there was a recent negative comment that was directed towards your teammate, Alejandro Kirk. You stood up for your battery mate. And then, Gibby, you got involved as well defending this. So talk about that a little bit as far as, when you're always looking out for somebody and your teammates. And, John, of course, your affinity for the Blue Jays. And you got involved a little bit too. So I'd like to hear both of your takes on that. Yeah,
Kirk is a brother to me, and we're both two young guys trying to find our place in this game. And, we both play with a huge amount of passion, and we're both extremely talented. And we have a really good connection, when I'm on the mound and when he's catching. And, sometimes our body types don't fit everyone's perfect mold. And that's the beautiful thing about baseball, is, in football, you're 6'7", 380 pounds, you're a lineman. You're 6'4", 220, and you got a rocket arm, you're a QB. You run a 4.4 or 4.2, you're a wide receiver or running back. Like there's a mold for every position. In baseball, there's no mold. There's a game of knowledge. It's a game of IQ. It's a game of talent as well, hand-eye coordination. But we're talking about a guy that was voted by the people, millions of people, to start the All-Star game. This is a guy that leads the league at his position in every category, in batting average and home runs, on base percentage, least amount of strikeouts. Like, there's a guy that's durable, that's catching, I don't know how many games he's caught this year, but a ton of games. There's a guy that's DHing when he's not catching. Like, this is a guy that a winning ball club needs in their lineup, and needs on the field. And for someone to find the need to just say something negative about that that to me kind of just it wasn't right to me, especially somebody who has a verified account, who works for a big company, who has a podcast that a lot of people listen to. This is a person with a voice, and some people listen to that. And for me, using your platform and having a voice is amazing. But when you're using it to put people down, especially for their body type, that to me is not cool. So that's why I decided to jump in. I usually don't try and jump in on the Twitter fools. At the end of the day, that guy calling Alejandro Kirk embarrassing for the sport or things like that, that's not going to change what Alejandro does. Alejandro works his tail off. Alejandro loves to play baseball. He loves to win ball games, and he helps his team do that. And doesn't matter what the hell that guy says. Doesn't matter what most of the population says. He's going to go out and he's going to do that. And he's going to do that for this team. And so whether he cares about it or not, it bothered me. So that's why I jumped in, and I don't think anything he said is going to change our views or the way we work hard or anything like that. But I think me responding kind of opened a lot of people's eyes, because it doesn't matter what you look like. You can be 6'2" with a rock hard six pack, and you can't catch as many games as this guy probably,
like Gibby.
Or you wear one ball off the ribs, you wear one ball off the ribs, and there it goes, now you're on the IL for 2 months.
Exactly.
There's a lot of things that goes into it. And, this guy trying to say negative things just because, we want to come fat. Okay. Well, how come he's an all-star voted by millions of people to start the game? How come he's on a winning team, that's ready to do some big things, and he's one of the big pieces, so whether, whether you like him or not, or whether you like what he looks like or not, first off, it's not that guy's, business, to care. First off, it's kind of weird, one man judging another man's body.
Exactly, man. Dude, come on. Yeah.
What if he's a fan of the game, be a fan of Alejandro Kirk, I was a little fat kid growing up. Did I stop giving up because A-Rod had a 6'4", he was 6'4", hit 600 home runs, and in my head I'm like, well, I'm a little fat kid, I can't hit 600 home runs, I don't look like that. No, I kept going anyways, because you got guys like David Wells and big dudes like Roger Clemens, and you got some big dudes in this game that have done some great things.
Daniel Vogelback.
Yeah, exactly. And Alejandro Kirk's going to put himself in that category as well. So why are we going to deny all these kids of their dreams just because they don't look like a certain prototype? Like, no, man, that's not what baseball is about.
Hey, good for you.
Good for you, exactly.
Hey, good for you. Hey, and but pardon my French, literally, but there's always assholes out there, man. You know what? Who knows why they do it? And with social media, but that is what the beauty is of baseball. Like you said, you can be big, short, skinny, heavy. It doesn't. You can look different ways. If you got a skill, if you can catch it, you can hit it or throw it, you can be successful. I mean, that's awesome. And you know what? I was a big kid when I was young, and my brothers and sister and my mom would call me Husky, right? Husky. So, but you know what? It doesn't matter. Who cares? He's a great dude, and he's having some success. But there's always people that are going to knock you. But good for you, man. Come and do his defense.
Absolutely.
That's important. That's not just important in the game of baseball. That's important in life. And people get to see that. You know what? It wakes some people up because there's some turds out there. We all know it. And but that is impressive. You know what, Alec? Like I said earlier, people have fallen in love with you. Not just because you're a great pitcher and you're going to have a great career, but it's because who you are, what you stand for, what you represent. And you know what? That's what matters. There's a lot of great players out there that are jerks, and they don't, they don't care about anybody else. And they're just, they're good. So, okay. And they help you win, whatever. But that's what I think draws people to you. And, your mom and dad did a great job. That's the bottom line, in raising you. That's obvious. And, it's been fun. It's fun talking to you. Now I got to ask you a couple of questions about my boy, Pete Walker, right? Petey. Hey, by the way, you were talking about a quarterback a minute ago, or could throw the ball. He told me you get loose with a football.
Yeah, I do. This offseason, I started doing that because I feel like when, this last year was probably the longest, season I'd ever had. And then the shortest off season, going into big league camp again this year. So like kind of getting used to that throwing program and adjusting the throwing program a little bit. But when I started throwing this year, my arm was kind of getting a little bit long. And I was like, hey, how can I kind of shorten this up? And then, we had our turkey bowl, me and the family, my brothers and cousins and all that, we get together and we go do the turkey bowl, and they don't let me play. They're just like, hey, you're QB, just throw the rock, can't let you get hurt. So as I'm throwing it, I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, hold on, like, this is a nice short arm action. I'm like, this kind of clicks with, because when you're first starting to throw, you're not throwing hard, you're just throwing nice and easy. So you can kind of start to create bad habits as you're doing that. You're only throwing 60 feet, 100 throws or whatever. So in my head, I'm like, I kind of felt like I was creating some bad habits. So I started throwing the football. Ended up reading up that, Nolan Ryan, used to throw the football and stuff like that too. So I was like, okay, well, we're kind of on a good track here. Let's just keep doing this and see where it takes us. And I just think it really helps me get that front side kind of locked in, keep a short arm angle, get my shoulder nice and loosened up, and helps me stay on top of the ball instead of kind of around it. And I feel like it's kind of helped me a lot this year.
And, in 1989, I was in camp. I played with the Texas Rangers, right? I ended up playing AAA with the Rangers. Tom House was their pitching coach. Yep. Nolan Ryan was in camp. Nolan was on the team, back then with the Rangers. So I go to spring training, and I go out there. The pitchers are all flipping footballs around. I thought, I'm shocked, but that was Tom House, I think, kind of introduced a little bit of that back then. And so I started doing it, and I was having fun, maybe the old quarterback days. But also, have you ever seen a quarterback that couldn't whistle a baseball? No, man, they can all whistle a baseball too. So anyway, I started throwing. I had the best throwing year of my life. My shoulder never felt better as a catcher. Yeah. I still couldn't hit, but so that didn't help my hitting. But that was back then. And like you mentioned, Nolan Ryan, and Nolan was on that team. I'm thinking there's something to that. So I you know what? Hey, by you saying this, next thing you know, everybody's gonna be out there throwing bombs, before in front of the dugout trying to. Hey, you know what though? Hey, you could, you got two sports stars. You got Ohtani that hits and pitches. You had Bo Jackson. Some of the people look at. I'm pretty sure people wanted you to play football too. Say maybe you can play for the Argonauts, in the off season. So
maybe just coming. Couple days.
I don't know if you're going to sell Pete Walker on that football, but keep trying. But how's Petey, man? Pete pitched for me in the minor leagues with the Mets, and then when I came back for my second go round, he'd been in the bullpen, and then we made him the pitching coach. And in my opinion, there's nobody better, right? And you're not going to find a better human being. But that sucker, he gets thrown out more times than ejected, more times than any pitching coach I ever. Am I right?
He's a winner. He wants to win. He doesn't care if it has to do with our pitchers or the hitters or whatever it is. He just has a passion for winning and backing his players up. And man, he does a great job with the pitching staff as well. I feel like kind of going from stadium to stadium around the league. You watch other guys throw bullpens and stuff like that, and you see pitching coaches how. I've seen pitching coaches stop guys during bullpens and talk about, analytics and spin rates and things like that. And, Pete didn't coach me until probably 5-6 starts into the big leagues. And the reason behind that was because he wanted to learn me, and I think that's what makes him so good is, it's not about him, he's like, he doesn't care if he makes a tweak that changes your career. He doesn't care that he doesn't get the knowledge or the love for it. He wants you to do great. He wants the team to win. And he can't help coach you if he doesn't know you, if he doesn't know what you're working on or what your weaknesses are and what your strengths are, things like that. So for me, he kind of felt me out for, I would say, a few starts, see my routine, see how everything kind of, what I'm working on, just ask questions. He was asking questions and things like that. And I think that's what makes him so good is it's not about him. And the other thing is, I am kind of old school. I can read the data and the analytics, but I don't throw bullpens with TrackMan or Rapsodo. I don't do anything like that. I feel like when I'm on the mound, there's not a specific data or something that's going to get me out of a jam. I have to get myself out of that jam, and I have to know myself to the T in order to understand, if I'm flying balls this way, what I got to do to get them over here. If I'm hanging sliders, what I have to do to finish them, and things like that. And I think that all comes internal. That's not going to come from an iPad reading you data, and if you're in a bullpen and you're throwing balls with X amount of, vertical break or horizontal break, and then the next one you throw it and you're like, okay, there's the break. You don't have that in the game. You have to figure it out yourself in the game, so
Right.
I think Pete does a perfect job of
Perfect.
not being analytical, like, hey, you need to do this or you need to do this, but being able to be like pitching coach, like baseball mind, talk to you about mechanical adjustments, things like that. And then having the analytical team, where he understands all the numbers and stuff like that. But that's not where his foundation lies, but
Right.
he can do it to help you, but his foundation will lie in pitching, competing, mechanics,
The nuts and bolts.
moving on the rubber, little tricks like that, and that was one of the things that helped me the most last year. I was hitting a lot of guys. Sinker was just running away from me and still.
Oh, was Judge one of them? Sorry, my bad.
I led the league last year and hit by pitches. I only had 20 starts.
Nothing's wrong with that. Did it hurt you? No.
And I'm not in second place this year, so.
Hey, I'm going to say, hey, you can throw analytics out the window with your type of pitcher, right? And I say this with the aces and the top dogs in baseball, because you know what? If people are smart, they throw you out there, right? And they watch how you're pitching. And third time through the lineup, that's one of the big things now. That doesn't matter with guys like you, right? Because things may bump up and down, all that. It doesn't matter. You're not gonna lose whatever you got,
right?
Just because it's the third time through the lineup when you're really good.
Is a lot of these teams are worried about the third time through the lineup and they're worried about the analytics and they've seen you 3 times, things like that. But for me, I'm planning on going through the lineup 3 times from the first inning.
Yeah.
So when I'm facing the first batter, or I'm facing you for the first time, I'm trying to keep some eggs in the basket for later. I'm not pitching to just get through one inning, one time through the lineup or 2 times through the lineup. Hey, I did my job. No, I'm trying to get through this game as deep as possible, knowing that, hey, I might throw you 7 fastballs in the first inning, but you didn't see my changeup, you didn't see my sinker, you didn't see my sinker. You might have got a single, or you might have popped out and I didn't strike you out, but that's not what I'm playing for. I'm playing for how can I set you up maybe later? How can I get deeper in the game? How can I just get ahead? And then kind of understanding the way the game is going, I think kind of helps that as well too. If some guys are letting a lot of first pitches come through, okay, well, I'm going to keep throwing them, and then understanding, okay, now they're going to get a little more aggressive. Or, hey, they're starting off aggressive. Okay, maybe we got to give a little bit of junk, and then we start, back.
You're thinking, man.
Later. I think it's kind of just a process through the whole game where you're trying to learn as the game is going on, and you're adjusting as it's going on, instead of, hey, go get us 2 times through the lineup and then,
Hey, you're not a robot, man. You're a human being. But I'm telling you, Roy Halladay, right? I had Roy, right? And watched him enough. Roy would always lead the league in hits allowed, right? He'd give up his hits. He'd attack you, especially early in the game, early in the count. You get some hits, but he had that tremendous sinking fastball, and then he developed a cutter, and he'd roll his ground ball, right? But when guys get in a scoring position, you know what? You're seeing a different guy. And you're one of those guys too. I mean, I saw some numbers. Your numbers. See, everybody's in numbers now. Where when guys in scoring position, you're tough, man. You know what? Things get a little bit tougher, and that's when you rise to the occasion. That's what separates the really good ones from bad ones. But sometimes, there's nothing wrong with giving up hits. It's just, when do you give them up? And but if not just the manager and coaching staff, whatever, people in the stands can tell when you're getting tired, right? And that should alert the manager, and the coaching staff when it's time to take you out. And you're being a human being, you may roll off a string of long outings, right? and naturally you're going to get a little tired sooner or later. And that's if you're sitting there watching, the ball's coming up, it's flat, you're getting hit or whatever. That's the time you take you out early, right? I mean, the common sense, catch your breath. Next time you're right back to who you are. So as far as, the top pitchers in the game, you can really throw that analytics. Maybe they ought to move it to third time through the line or fourth time through the lineup no, I'm serious because it's unfair. And I've seen a lot of great outings where guys get yanked and you're going, what are you doing? And next thing you know, I've looked in the other dugout and the guys on the other team are going, hey, thank you very much. Thank you very much, asshole. You did us a favor. Next thing you know, the game flips because you know what? They took, the guy's rolling, but the numbers say this. And so anyway,
I would hate to get, and that's why I love what our organization does as well, is we try and play the matchups, but we also have that baseball mentality, hey, we're going to live or die by our horse on the mound. And we got a lot of them. Strip is a horse, and Gosman's a horse, and Barrios is a horse, and I'm trying to put myself in that kind
good team, man.
I think the team has done a good job of letting us, whether it's 2-3 times through the order, it doesn't matter. They trust that if they do pull us from the game, it's because, okay, hey, we feel like the stuff's falling off a little bit, you're a little tired, but it's not, hey, your worst third time through the order, so we're going to pull you before it gets bad. Like I think they're trusting, who
exactly.
we are.
You got a good bunch.
Pitchers.
I mean, obviously the game's changed, but there's got to be different rules for the top pitchers in the game. I mean, that's just and what I can tell you, I told you mentioned Halladay. Sometimes you go to take Halladay out, and this I guarantee this is you right here. You come out of that dugout, it's one of those deals. I can remember never, a lot of times you come out of the dugout, you signal right away, give me that guy right in the bullpen, right?
Yeah.
With Halladay, you never did that because, there's a chance he might change your mind when you get out there, right?
Right.
Maybe I'm going to give him a chance to convince me that, I better leave him in. And I always viewed it this way too. If I'm going to take the starting pitcher out of the game, the guy I'm bringing in better, I hope he's better than the guy got out there. And usually in your case, that's not the case. Now you get later in the game, you get your specialist. Okay. But before that, so if I'm not going to bring in somebody that's better, what am I doing anyway, But I tell you what, too, back to Halladay, a couple times I went right away and he looked at me and he got that look, Doc didn't say much, right? But he looked at you and go, oh, so I'm walking up to go, oh, crap, right? So anyway, but he wouldn't say nothing. And you go, you know what? He was like a manager's dream. He may not agree with you, but he would never bury you. He would never do that. You're that same kind of guy. You know what? You may not understand it. They take you out, but you know what? You're not going to sit there and carve somebody up because you're too much of a team guy, too much of a character guy, but hey, I'm going to tell you, you guys are rare now. You guys are rare. So,
yeah.
But anyway, one last thing, we got to let you go, man. You got a ball game tonight. For crying out loud, you're going to get fined for being late because we're holding you up.
No,
which I'm sure your shoe contract, whatever you're working on, will cover that fine. But hey, last thing on Pete Walker, one of my favorite guys of all time. When Pete first started, was the pitching coach, the main dog, right? Main guy. We'd sit next to each other on the bench, right? And in his first year, I looked down sometimes, or I hear him. He was like hyperventilating. He was breathing real deep. And I look at Pete and I said, Pete, relax, dude. Are you all right? He goes, yeah, I'm fine right there, man. I'm fine. I said, you got to relax, dude. I said, they're the ones out there performing. It ain't me and you, man. We're hiding here in the dugout. So you got to relax. And so ask about that. We joked about that all the time. But I know one thing, when you're out there on the mound, he's not there and they're breathing hard. He's out there. He's loving watching. He's one of the best. So, but listen, we can't thank you enough for your time. We're big fans. We're all fans of the game and not only what you're accomplishing at such a young age, what you represent. It's you're more than just an athlete. You're just a good human being. And like I said earlier, your mom and dad did everything right. And so we wish you the best. By God, I better see you in that first game of the playoff and not game 162. Or you know what? I'm canceling my prescription or my subscription.
Whenever it is, I'll be ready to go. And
of course, man, you're a team player, brother.
I'm ready to represent this country as best as I can for as long as I can.
But remember one thing too: when we do stupid things in this game, and I'm speaking of decisions we make because I've made many of them, the baseball gods punish you. You know what I mean? So that's the thing. So I hope everybody does things right. I said one thing about this game, because I've made many dumb decisions in my day, plenty of. That's why I'm not working right now. But if you do things that are counter to common sense baseball, and you don't let the fans enjoy the marquee players, whatever, the baseball gods punish you. And they may, and then next thing you know, you're going, what happened? But remember that I said that. Anyway, Alex, hey, finish strong. We're proud of you. Keep it up. Lead that team to the promised land, will you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're going to do it.
All right, pal. Say hello to everybody for us.
I will.
Thank you very much.
Hey, tell Pete to breathe. Breathe.
I will. Thank you, guys.
All right, pal. Take care.
Have a good one.
What a great interview that was, John, with Alec. My goodness, I mean, what a great guy.
Yeah, you know what, Johnny? I it's the first time I met him, but I've heard a lot about him. Obviously, just a first class individual. He's got a heart of gold. And that's a big part of why people love him so much. Not just because he's a great athlete, and he's a great baseball player. It's because he put it this way, he's got his life together, and like I said earlier, his mom and dad did a tremendous job. They really did, and we need more of that in this world today.
Absolutely. Very gracious with his time. What a great guest, and we can't wait for the next edition of Gabbing with Gibby and see who you're going to have for us next time around. But now it's time for the Ask Gibby segment. Of course, we've gotten a tremendous response sending questions. The fans have been to askgibbyshow@gmail.com. We're going to start off this segment with a question from that came in through the Gmail account from Martin Kaplan. And his question is, do you feel that managers have less influence than they had years ago? How often are the GMs or the analytic employees making out the lineup or even deciding what relief pitchers should be brought in? Your viewpoint on that?
Well, thanks for the question, Martin. They're definitely much more involved now than they have ever been. I'm sure each team's a little bit different. Some may be more than others, but I'm telling you right now, you're not getting a job managing if you're not willing to take your marching orders or listen to the front office. And that's, what. There's a lot. They're providing a lot of good information. There's no doubt about that. But I think they've kind of lost the sense of the human element in the game. If you could guarantee a certain outcome with something, like if these guys were robots, okay. But that's not baseball. But there's also some very good info that's helped the game out a lot. But that's one of my beefs. Is I do think most teams, I would guess probably all, make out the lineups. And they juggle it. Used to be in baseball. The players would get all pissed off if they weren't hitting the same spot every night. They had to look at the thing and, well, one day I'm hitting second, one day I'm hitting sixth, unless they were struggling, right? So maybe they bought into that now too. And as far as pitching changes, I think what happens, they're not actually sitting there with a mic in the ear going, hey, go get this guy out, bring Joe Blow in there in the seventh inning. But I think that they lay out, and a lot of it's very useful. They'll look at what this relief pitcher, let's say, what his style of pitching, how it matches up with a particular hitter on the other team, and that does have some value. It's not guaranteed, but so then now that every reliever has to face at least three guys, I think you just kind of map out that slot, that block of three hitters, where it fits into. These might be the best guys after they get the opposing team's lineup. They might fit in best, and then you kind of do your best to match that up. But you know what? But my thinking is, if a manager or me, whoever, I don't care who's managing, can't make out a lineup, something's wrong, and I'm probably not very good, And but you know what? We've tried to screw up the game. Hey, Johnny, we've tried to screw up the game of baseball for years. We keep trying. We can't, man. Sooner or later, it comes back to the norm.
That's very true. But, that's just an interesting part of the game today and the evolution of it, of course. And I think the old school managers or the ones that are a little bit more outspoken about it than some of the young kids who are trying to get their first job as a skipper. We have one other question.
Let me ask you a question, though, real quick.
Go right ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Is the game better now? I don't know. Is it? I mean, I don't know. I wish I'd poll that. Do people think the game's better now the way it's run like this?
You know,
I mean, are the statistics dramatically different that it's benefited that much more, or I don't know.
Yeah, I'm a 50-year baseball fan, and I love the game more today than I ever have. I mean, I love everything about it. You know, the evolution. Some of the things you're like, I wish it was from that era, or that rule change gets you a little bit, but. I love the game of baseball, and I love it more today than I did when I went to my first game in 1966. So that's the answer,
Well, there you
John.
go.
I love it, man. I love it.
Well,
And I would love to.
Well, hey, you're a smart guy. You're a smart guy. You could sit there and decipher
I
all that
am
info.
the
Maybe
genius.
that's my problem.
No, you're a smart guy too, man. You've accomplished a hell of a lot in your career in baseball, and you've done an incredible job. And now you're a podcast star. You're a podcast star. But I tell you one thing about loving stuff. I would love to catch a baseball that is historic. Now there's like the 700.
Why do you need the money or what?
Well, you'd always use a little extra cash. Everybody can, no matter what you do and who you are. But I want to ask you this question. What do you think about the fans who catch milestone home runs? What do you think they should do with the baseball? For example, Judge's 61st home run or 62nd, which people are saying could be worth a few $1 million, Pujols' 700th or whatever. What's your take? Keep it, give it to the player. What do you do with that ball?
I'm keeping it and selling it, man. I'm a capitalist. I mean, I see all the time. When they the club will send somebody out there to try to get a ball.
I know they do that a lot.
I don't know if that's necessary. I think it's kind of one of the beauties of being a fan. You happen to get this ball right here, and I don't think it makes me money hungry or anything. But you sell it to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Let them buy it and let them give it back or do something with it. But no, I get it. It's a nice personal collection for that individual. But guys that do those kind of, that have those kind of, or looking at those kind of records or historic balls or whatever, their trophy case is full. They probably don't even have enough room for this, so it's not like they have to have it. But I'm telling you, as a fan, I guarantee you somebody that catches the 700th home run or is going to catch Judge's ball, he's going to take a beating, man, because there's going to be a mob trying to get to that thing.
Right.
And he's going to have so many people on top of him, what have you. So he's earned that ball. But, if they decide that, I'm sure they'll get rewarded nicely. But I don't know if they get rewarded as much as they could if they do it themselves, So
yeah, memorabilia is hot right now, obviously. So that money, and if you're taking your life in your hands to catch that ball, while you're going to have 1,000 people piling on top of you, it's worth it's worth it.
Yeah. Plus, the fans in the games, and thank God they finally put up some netting along the lines in there, but they're ducking line drive foul balls and all that. So. You know what? They get a ball. It's like the greatest thing in the world, right? So now that they get one of these balls, you know what? I won't have to worry about it because I'll never hit that many home runs, or I never did. I hit one, so.
Yeah, I remember that.
Did I get that ball? I don't even know if anybody gave me that ball. I didn't want it, man. I didn't want it. Nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted it.
You got enough stuff in your trophy case too, though. You've had a great. You've had a great career, John. Okay. We're looking forward to next week. Next week is going to be a big show. I don't know who our guest is going to be yet, but it'll be somebody. And, of course, it's nut cutting time, as Gibby says, all this week and next week, and we'll cover it all on this podcast. That's going to about wrap it up for this edition of the Gibby Show. I want to thank John Gibbons, of course, and also special guest today, Alek Manoah, from the Toronto Blue Jays. What a show it's been. I want to also thank our creative director, who's been doing such a fabulous job, Chris Sabunia, and our researcher, Dominic DiBiase. For John Gibbons, this is John Arezzi. We want to talk more baseball with you each and every week here, so keep tuning in to The Gibby Show. Have a great week, everyone. Go Jays, and let's go Mets.